Some international news now. We're focusing on Myanmar. There has been widespread condemnation of the military coup on February the 1st and the arrest of civilian leader and longtime peace activist Aung San Suu Kyi. She was under house arrest for years, I'm sure you'll remember, but last November her party won a large majority and it seemed that the country was slowly moving towards democracy. Now, former South African Cabinet Minister Roelf Meyer has been involved in peace efforts in Myanmar since 2014, and he joins me now. Good evening, Mr. Meyer. Thank you very much for your time. It did seem that Myanmar was moving closer to some form of democracy. What do you think has happened to tip the country back towards authoritarian rule?
Yeah, this is very sad, Sally. Thank you for the opportunity. I've visited the country since 2014 on a regular basis, and there was a lot of hope that things are moving in the right direction as far as establishing a real democracy. Unfortunately, that has now been overturned completely, and everything that happened as far as progress is concerned in the last 10 years have been just been lost as a result of what happened on the 1st of February.
You've written an article, I think, for the City Press, where you say that you feel that US President at the time, Barack Obama, was premature in lifting sanctions in 2016. Do you think that that could have laid the groundwork for this turbulence now, or is that not a direct line to that?
Well, the point that I was making is that the international community had the opportunity to keep the sanctions on the military. We must remember the fact that there was military rule for more than 50, 60 years in Myanmar. And then they started to change in 2010 by instituting new constitutional measures that created the impression that they were on their way to democracy, as a result of which Aung San Suu Kyi was allowed to participate in the first by-elections around 2011, 2012. And so the international community, and particularly the Western community, decided this is the moment, and they lifted sanctions immediately against the military rulers. And by that, they also lost their opportunity to leverage any, or exercise any leverage against the military rulers. And so the point that I was making is that those sanctions were lifted too early. And as a result of which, the progress that was made was not sustainable.
Right. And now Aung San Suu Kyi has been arrested, I understand, for corruption charges. Have you had any contact with her since her arrest? I know that you normally have a lot of communication with her.
I met with her regularly, in fact, every time that I visited Myanmar, and that unfortunately came to an end about a year ago when COVID stopped all traveling. But now there's no communication with her at all. Nobody can reach her. Nobody even knows where exactly she finds herself right now. I've spoken to the special envoy of the UN Secretary General 2 days ago, and she even couldn't reach her and doesn't know what is the present circumstances of Aung San Suu Kyi.
So, you know, she has been lauded for many, many years as a freedom fighter. She was under house arrest for so long, but she's also faced criticism recently from the international community for turning a blind eye to the Rohingya genocide. So what is your take on her?
Well, it's difficult to say. You know, I think in the first instance she is a Buddhist nationalist Burmese person. There's no doubt about that, but one would say there's also not specifically something wrong with that. It's the question of how she handled the minority groups, and there are plenty of them, 15 or more ethnic communities in Myanmar, of which the Rohingya is one. And of course what happened there, ironically, was introduced by the military. It was the military who launched an attack on the Rohingya in 2016 and 2017, as a result of which they were pushed out of the country across the border into Bangladesh. And then Aung San Suu Kyi was blamed for the fact that she was not criticizing the military for doing that. And that was the blame that the international community, I think to a large extent, still holds against her. But in a certain way, she was trying to protect the military for what they did. So what is, you know, the irony of the situation is now she's being ousted by the military at the time that she was probably coming forward to try and unify the people of Myanmar in that sense that she went to the ICJ, the International Criminal Court of Justice, and tried to lay the case that would have protected the military. Now that's all been turned around, and she is now the victim.
What do you think is going to happen now? Because there was this path towards democracy, and now it's been upended. Aung San Suu Kyi has been arrested. You can't get hold of her. The international community is condemning what's going on. Protesters are being arrested. It looks increasingly violent, what's happening to protesters. Where do you suspect it's going? Is this now the chance for the international community to make a very strong statement and get involved in some way?
I absolutely think that's the right way to go, Sari. The point is, what needs to happen now is that the resistance that's building up within the country has to be supported by the international community. There are good signs as far as that is. The fact that China has also indicated that they are not in favor of the coup, I think, is a very positive sign. The statement that was issued by the Security Council of the UN last week is already a very positive, strong message. And I think there is now a build-up by the international community, probably led by the US under the current circumstances. And if we can get a collective result from this, a mobilized effect by the international community to support the mass action within Myanmar, I think that will probably be the only way to turn around the coup that had started last week. If not, then the military will exercise the coup, implement it fully, take over government in all respects, and then we probably have military rule for the next, not only 1 year, but indefinitely.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights on a country that you've worked with extensively. Thank you very much. Former Government Minister Roelf Meyer, Chief Negotiator for the National Party back in the day with our transition to democracy, now involved in Myanmar and trying to help that country move closer towards democracy.